The race leader, and look, it's Saxo Tinkoff here just driving it along, Sean, and this is well, sure the intent here is to just make it so hard for Valverde to get back in that he's completely cream crackered by the end of it.
Yes, well, it's surprising that they are pushing on at the moment, because they never really contributed on the flat section, but yeah, it's a mountaintop finish, and that's where, you know, Valverde is so strong, and that's where he can do a lot of damage with his team first of all, and then he takes it up himself a bit further on, and it's going to be real difficult for Valverde here, because this open pace here by Saxo Bank is going to really blow the front group apart, and that's where Valverde is going to have difficulty. As we can see, just groups 2s, 3s just coming back to him, and to make it into the front group, make it up to the big favourites. If he does that, well, then he's, you know, going really strong on a real good day.
Valverde, one of the riders, pushing along here with Froome and Nicolas Roche sitting in the wheel. So it's Valverde under pressure from Alberto Contador and Chris Froome. Valverde desperate to find somebody to work with him here to keep it going, but it's no good looking at the guys who are coming up to you, or you're just coming up to Alejandro, because unfortunately they're cooked. Contador, Froome, Navarro, who was just up the road a little bit, springboard for Alberto Contador, and Nicolas Roche. That's a good move for Nico. If he can climb at this sort of steady pace, Sean, he's going to pull a little bit of time, which is good.
Yes, and of course, Nicolas Roche, this sort of climb, it would be a much more suitable climb for him than yesterday. The steeper gradient, I don't think, you know, he's able to match the big climbers, and not surprising yesterday that he got into difficulty with the way Contador was pushing in them huge big attacks. This sort of climb, bigger gear stuff, more of a power rider, and that's what Nicolas can, that's the sort of climb he can do better on.
Question is, will there be any more reaction to two of the big favourites, Alberto Contador and Froome going up the road? Some sort of reaction here, Sean. It looks like Perito there. Joaquim Rodriguez, who couldn't go with them, or didn't go with them, has got a man on the front trying to at least match their pace. Yes, and
he has put a teammate on the front just to continue on setting the pace here, and it's surprising that you know, Joaquim Rodriguez not immediately with Contador, because we see him yesterday, moment Contador made any move, he was on his wheel immediately.
Inside the last 8 kilometres, the two leaders, Tony Martin and Simon Clark. There's 9 kilometres that the chasing riders are going under here. Daniel Navarro has really lit the blue touch paper, and away he goes with Alberto Contador, Chris Froome and Nicolas Roche. And it's the Katusha team of Joaquim Rodriguez that's having to do the pulling on the front of this front group here. Remains of an absolutely slaughtered peloton, completely fractured thanks to crosswinds, and then attack after attack. Talansky is in there, Van den Broek is in there, I can see. Geerdeman also in this group of chasing riders, more forward the back, is it? But even so, it's hard going chasing these four here. Navarro is doing a super job. Coming up to the 8 kilometres to go, banner for Navarro, Contador, Froome and Nicolas Roche. This is fantastic. More attacking here, Sean, than we saw in the whole of the Tour.
Yes, it's made an exciting stage once again, and the crash, I think, it set it all off, because it was really going to fall flat. Nobody wanted to contribute to the pace setting with Movistar, and our leaders were just, you know, pulling out advantage, and a huge advantage with 13 minutes, and the crash changed all that suddenly, and here we are, we have action like in the final 40 kilometres all the time. We can see Valverde losing time here, 55 seconds was the last time check, so he's lost quite quite a bit in the earlier part of the line there. He could just see the tail end of the group of big favourites, so he was at maybe 25-30 seconds max, but it's growing out now, and he is going to pay, he's going to pay for his efforts here, because just to get across that gap on his own, it's going to be so difficult. Maybe he can just join up with that group of Rodriguez. If he can do that, well then he will save the day, but that is going to be also a big ask for him.
I don't think it's going to happen, sorry, but I just don't see it happen. That's Benyatin Chausti waiting for, or at least not being able to go any fast in. Chausti second in the overall classification. Surely, Sean, the call has come back. You have to slow up, you have to wait for Alejandro, and that's what he's done. He's a very good climb, or maybe he's cooked. Yes,
it's possible that he's in difficulty as well. Difficult to know exactly what the tactic will be with Movistar. We will see if Inchasti can continue on making the pace for quite a long time with Valverde. Well, then I think it was the call that he got to get back to Valverde. But if he just only lasts for a kilometre less, well, then it means that he's also in difficulty and not able to match the pace of the other big favourites out front.
This is going to be fascinating now. Is Contador going to put up with Froome sitting behind him? No, Froome's quite happy to take a turn on the front here as Nicolas Roche goes through as well. It's what they're going to have to do, Sean, to keep maintaining the gap over Joaquim Rodriguez and anyone else, because Saxo Tinkoff, Daniel Navarro has done a huge amount of work to make that gap, and a real expression of intent. And it would not be a wise move to just let Contador do all the work on the front, because he'll just sit up and go, "Why bother him?" Nicolas Roche, familiar sight now, mouth wide open, really working hard. There's a definite look of suffering on his face most of the time. He does know how to suffer, doesn't he? He's a tough guy.
Well, you've got to be tough when you get in this sort of company, and we can see Roche. He looks to be in a bit more difficulty than Froome, for example. Surprised that he is pulling along here, because he's with two magnificent climbers. I would expect him just to sit on here and get carried along for a while. But again, if you do that, well then maybe they start attacking you immediately. So you have to make the calculation. If I try and ride through a bit, do a little bit, possibly they would just continue on riding a strong pace, where if you try and get carried along, they might say, well, we're not carrying this guy all the way up the climb, and if the likes of Contador put in the attacks, that's not what Nicolas Roche need here.
Yep, show willing is the thing. Contador does a shortish turn on the front. Froome comes through. Now Contador slips into the wheel of Froome. Contador will be well aware that Nicolas Roche is hanging on in here. This is Valverde. He has got Inchausti with him. Inchausti looking as though, to me, as though he has been sent back to collect the team leader. But Valverde is beginning to look extremely tired here, and I'm not surprised. It's not going to be long before the old peddling squares phrase comes out, I don't think. He's made a huge effort to try and get back on. He's still going at a reasonable pace, but he's looking tired now. Rolling the shoulders a little bit. The head starts to weave just a bit with Valverde. He's one of those riders who starts to look around. He looks at the surroundings around him when he starts to get a bit tired. This is Mate, one of the original breakaway riders, being swept up by Chris Froome, who will like this sort of climb, Sean. He's very good time trials, good climber, can sit at pace.
Yes, he sure can ride well on this sort of climb, and we can see Nicolas Roche, pushing on here. They started to look at each other. You can see Christopher Froome looking at Contador, and Roche just keeps the pace quite high, and they're picking up riders, very quickly here. The question is now, the ones out front, will they have enough to hold on as Roche keeps on pushing the pace here, and surprisingly that Froome, Contador are not following.
Yeah, he certainly doesn't want to lose any more ground, does Nicolas Roche. And I'm very surprised, as you say, Sean, that Contador and Froome are looking at each other a little bit. I do think that Contador is afraid of Froome's abilities, and there's a little bit of nervousness about him at times.
or possibly the group of Joaquim Rodriguez, Katusha, setting quite a strong pace, and maybe they realise that they're not pulling any advantage out. They're just being left hang out there, and for that reason, they decided, there's no point in continuing here. They're only just allowing us to continue riding out in the front and burn energy. And we'll need to go back and see what Contador and Froome, have they continued, or have they totally knocked it off?
Well, I would assume, I would think, Sean, that they have in fact let that happen, that they've dropped back a little bit because they can't get any more advantage of Joaquim Rodriguez, because 3 riders have jumped the gap. Linus Gerdemann here at the back for Radio Shack Nissan, that typical bobbing style. Laurens ten Dam on the right hand side for Rabobank in the orange. Not quite sure, I haven't seen who the Astana rider is yet close up. Now we're looking over his shoulder, that's André Zeitz again. Zeitz always rides with his head almost buried in his shoulders. 2 minutes and 14 seconds for our leading riders and the group who are going after them. Froome is indeed back in this group now, as is Contador. Nicolas Roche in that leading, well, the group of 4 who are just ahead of the Froome, Contador, Rodriguez group. Nicolas Roche at 52 seconds in the overall classification. Laurens ten Dam at 1 minute and 12 seconds. Not particularly riders you'd want to get away and maintain any sort of advantage. Ten Dam, as I've said many a time, I think is an often underrated rider. They'll underrate him at this point, that's for sure. Ooh, Euskaltel dropping off the back here. Got that 3 men from Euskaltel? 2. Is Igor 3? Is Igor Anton one of them? Meanwhile, this is the head of the race. 4 kilometres to go for Tony Martin and the Australian Simon Clark. Simon Clark rode for Astana last year. He's not had a win this year. Did pretty well in the Volta Burgos, a couple of stages, just leading into the Volta Espana. Second in the Tour of Norway overall, Simon Clark. He's a tough rider, and he's in a position today, Sean, where if he gets to the top, along with Tony Martin, then something may happen for him. Carreral going on the attack now. Super kit of Cajaral again, really old school stuff, and away goes one of their riders. I am at a loss to know who it is at the moment. Possibly Cardoso. Could be even De La Fuente if he's climbing well. He's that stocky build of De La Fuente. There's Clark at the front from Orica Green Edge, and they are seriously pushing on now, Sean. They will know that the peloton is bearing down on them. It'll probably be about the 2 minute mark now, and they've still got a few kilometres to go. Anything could happen. Yes,
well, they know that the action is really kicked off for a long time behind, and they had to really push on the earlier part of the climb. When we see them, Tony Martin was pushing on, and they've done a really good job here, and the 2 here should be able to hold on now to go on for stage victory. And the final kilometre, it flattens out a lot, and it's going to be an interesting one, because Tony Martin very, very strong. I'm not sure how good a sprint Simon Clark has. It's going to be a big battle for the stage victory here.
It's that way. 1 minute and 40 for the group of 4 riders up ahead. Menchov setting pace here on the front with Hissink just behind him. Then Moreno, and then Rodriguez will be a little bit further back. I think he's just hiding in the wheel of Moreno there. It is Igor Anton is in problems. Suspected as much. You get that again. He's another rider. He's quite a stocky rider. Rides with his knees almost out, doesn't he? Always looks like his bike's too small for him. It's not a bad domestique train, is it, Sean? Menchoff and Moreno.
Certainly not. Menchoff, you know, if he's in shape and he can ride train on the front for a long time, because a great climb in his own right, and we can see the damage it's causing. You know, Anton in difficulty here. If Valverde can manage to join up with that group of Anton, because he's got two teammates there, so he could limit his losses there. We haven't seen how far Valverde is off here, but you know, now it's just going to be a battle for all out on the climb here. Our leaders just to hold on, our two leaders, and then the riders who are getting into difficulty just limit their losses and try and you know, lose the least amount of time. Anton, as we can see, not looking comfortable at all. Valverde, it depends on how much he has left, because he's had a difficult climb here. He's been riding most of the time on this 15-kilometre climb all on his own.
Yep, certainly has. 2 kilometres to go for our leaders, 3 kilometres to go for the chasing main bunch. And out of those two, Sean, Simon Clarke or Tony Martin?
Tony Martin.
I'll go for Clarkey then, we'll see. Clarkey and Martin. It's a fair old lick they're going up here, with Menchoff driving along on the front. A few other riders gone out the back door here. Coming into the closing stages of Etapa 4, stage 4 on the Vuelta a España, Baracaldo to Estación de Valdezcaray, and these men just ahead of the main bunch. Linus Gerdemann of Nissan, Radio Shack Nissan, André Zeitz of Astana, Nicolas Roche of AG Tour Le Mondial, all in this group here. Laurens ten Dam. I still haven't quite sussed out who the Cararuel rider is. Could be, it suits the style of either Cardoso or De La Fuente, but it could be Antonio Piedra as well. I think Piedra is from around this area, so it could well be Piedra who's gone on the attack here. Meanwhile, our two leaders, as it flattens out, have enough of advantage to go to the line now for a stage win. Tony Martin, the world time trial champion, terrific rider, now BMC, launching a bit of a dig on the road. 50 seconds between the leaders and this group here. They're not going to get caught, the two leaders, Sean, with a kilometre or so to go, but this is looking like trying to get across to our chasing group. There is Alejandro Valverde, the big leader, the big loser of today.
Big leader and big loser.
Big leader and what? Little leader, actually. Here's the final kilometre then, and Martin and Clarke start to play around. They both want this stage victory. Tony Martin and Simon Clarke in the original break of 5 with Rosendo Mate and Bazayev. All have gone on this final climb of the day, and the tough little Australian from Orica Green Edge at the back here, Simon Clarke, my pick for the day today. I think the kick will be much harder than Tony Martin's. Tony Martin, the super time trialer, still driving along on the front here. He's looking to see if he's going to get outgunned by Clarke here. Doesn't want to lead him into the line and slows the pace right down. Clarke isn't having any of that. I'm not going to go to the front. That's what you've got to do, Sean, just sit there.
Yes, well, of course, with a Tony Martin, you know, if you can make him lead out the sprint, a real strong, powerful rider. He doesn't have got that sudden acceleration, so for Clarke, he's doing the job well here. 500
metres to go. Tony Martin missed out on a victory on Mont Ventoux to Juan Manuel Garate, Spaniard, ironically, a few years ago. And now hey, Clarkey's track background. Let's give it a little dig. Just try and freak Tony Martin out to keep the pace going, to roll down towards the line. I think Tony Martin is going to have a problem holding off Simon Clarke here. Martin winds it up, he looks over the shoulder. Clarke goes up on the inside. 2 bike lengths already. No, Tony Martin's given up. Simon Clarke from Australia gets the biggest win of his career. And Orica Green Edge will be happy about that, as will all our viewers in Australia. Tony Martin takes second spot. Asan Basayev, tough little Kazakh sprinter roadman that he is going to take third spot. Well, he hung on very, very well. I mean, he was dropped early on and has done a good job there, Sean, to stay in that position.
Yes, climbed quite well, considering that he was, on his own for a long, long time and not losing a huge amount of ground, so climbed very well here.
André Zeitz leading this quintet of riders into the finish now, with Nicholas Roach opening up the sprint. And Carual making it's De La Fuente making the move early on, and does he? What does he think? He thinks he's won the stage. I think he thinks he's won the stage. It's not going to happen. Sorry, he's going to be most disappointed when he feels that there's a whole load of riders ahead of him. The win going to Simon Clark of Australia. That's good stuff for Clark. Rode with Astana last year. Here's Igor Anton. He lost contact with that main group when the speed went up a little bit. And losing 132 on the leaders. This is Valverde's group. He's going to lose the jersey today, Sean, and unfortunately for him, he was just caught out. It's either going to be Joaquim Rodriguez, or the next riders down are Rodriguez, Froome and Contador, all of whom were in that front group.
Yes, and we can see here coming in at just 2 minutes. Contador, of course, finishing at 1:03 behind our winner Clark. So losing a lot of time. Anton also at 1:32 down, so he lost 32 seconds. But not a disaster for Valverde, considering what it looked like out on the road with 35-40 kilometers to finish. I think he limited his losses very well.
A great win for Simon Clark, and it was 11 minutes and 9 seconds down, so it was always going to be about the stage win for Clarkey. I think that he probably had to go back to 2008, I think, to the Trofeo Città del San Vandamignano in Italy for his last win on the road. In fact, he had 2 wins that year. I think he won a stage in the Tour of Japan at the same time. But he's been pretty good shape coming into the Vuelta a España. 2 third places, 2 podium places in stages of the Vuelta a Burgos. And a fine win for Simon Clark. And once again, Tony Martin has to settle for 2nd spot at the top of a mountain, Sean.
Yes, it's something we've seen before. We did mention Dale in our programme in the Mont Ventoux. He was very close to winning a mountaintop finish, but beaten by Garashi in that occasion. Here again, Clark, but Clark, he calculated very well. Tactically, he did a great job. Just allowed Martin to lead in that final kilometre and just made him take up the sprint. But Clark, much faster in the sprint. We can see here when he went about, he took 2-3 bike lengths out of Tony Martin very quickly.
Yeah, nice to throw for him, throwing a couple of fake ones in there. Tony Martin, knowing he was beaten as soon as Clark came past. Great win for Orica Green Edge and for Simon Clark. Pretty hot day today. There he is.
Simon Clark, how did you measure this sprint finish?
It was such a long day with so much wind in the finish, and I knew Tony was going to be really strong, but I wanted to make it a really hard climb because I knew with Bazayev he's really fast, so I was really happy when Tony and I could leave the rest behind. And then we just worked together, and I really backed myself in the finish. Tony's a really good time trialer, but I thought I could have him in a sprint, so I made sure he was in front and with the wind, and I just left it as late as possible.
How does it mean for you, this victory?
This is my first win as a professional. I've been pro for 4 years, and I tried so many times, and I have so many seconds and third places, so I'm just so happy.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yes, indeed, first pro win for Clark. The last 2 wins came in his Elite 1 year, his final Elite year. Not a bad place to open up your account, Sean.
Sure not, and he did a magnificent stage. First of all, getting into the breakaway, and when you're in a breakaway, as he said, there's some riders who you have to make the calculation, try and get rid of them. And Baziev was the one who Clark said if it was in a sprint, it would be real danger. So they had to work on that. After working all day to pull out the big advantage, then the final climb, you have to make the calculation and see who we've got with. And the moment he was with Tony Martin, I think it was a little bit more easier for him. But again, you never know with Tony Martin, he can just make such a final kilometre.
That's the thing, he could have gone like a bat out of hell in the last kilometre. Pretty bleak up at the top of Estación del Valdezcaray. Well, it's opened up the race a little more now, Sean. Alejandro Valverde was looking very, very good yesterday, exceptionally good, in fact, taking the win, the stage win, and also the race leader's jersey yesterday. Completely caught out by the crash today. A little bit of bad luck, but then he just couldn't get back on, and nobody was going to hang around.
No, and I think he will be really disappointed losing it that way. But still, only a minute roughly down on Contador Froome at the finish, and that's not a big disaster. Not a great day. He would rather be taking time out of the other Contador Froome, because the time trial is going to be one where he needs to do that every occasion he can. But for me, he's limited his losses very well. It looked like that he was going to lose a lot more when you see the way they were looking with 35-40 kilometres from the finish.
Yeah, a minute to lose doesn't sound like a huge amount, but against Contador and Froome and Rodriguez, of course, that's a lot. Simon Clark, well, we noticed him 2 years ago. 2 years ago? 2 years ago before he went to Astana. And in Astana, he had a couple of really good, cracking rides where he attacked very hard. Didn't quite make it to the line. He said he got seconds and thirds, but he's always been an aggressive rider. From that group, it was always difficult to back anybody else, to be honest. Well, certainly for me. Didn't think Baziev would get to the top. Clark wins from Tony Martin. Really good ride by Baziev. Actually, he can do the lumpy stuff, but it's a big long climb today, so that's a very good ride. Well calculated by Clark to get rid of him. Marcos Garcia of Carreal. Oh well, no mistake. Poor lad thought he'd won. Punching the air for all he's worth. Not realising there was 3 riders there. Steve Morabito, 1 minute and 4. Chris Froome in this group as well. Cardoso was in the group, so him, I guess. Cintini climbing in that group. Kobo, Talansky, Hessink, Contador that we saw. Daniel Moreno we talked about. So some very good climbers in there, but the big loser today, as we said, Alejandro Valverde, who really had a problem trying to get back on today. Roach in 5th spot. I think a fine ride by Nicholas Roach today, Sean. I mean, he's always trying, isn't he?
Yes.
One day it might come off.
Well, I think the opportunity was there. He could see that when Contador and Froome decided to go back to the peloton and other riders were coming across, it was the opportunity to try and pull out a number of seconds, and he did that because he was 55 seconds down, so he put 8 seconds into the other big favourites, Contador, Froome, also getting up on the stage, and it will be good for his confidence. He'll move up a lot in general classification, and he's going in the right direction, because when you look at some of the other big favourites, the Escatel, Anton, of course, in difficulty. When you look at that result sheet tonight and you see where some of the favourites, guys who are hoping maybe to be in the top 5, it's a nice position for Nicholas Roach to be in.
Great riding by Roach. But congratulations to Simon Clark, a first professional victory for the Australian, who's always not really been under the radar, Sean, but he's been one of the less high-profile Australian riders in the last few years.
A great victory for himself and also for the team to win a stage in a big tour. Very important for Ulrika Greenedge.
Well, Spanish television broadcasting a win of an Australian rider. Orica Green Edge really don't have anybody for the overall classification. Not one of them are anywhere near the top, and I think they have come here stage hunting, and they've got exactly that by stage 4. And Simon Clark, not in Australia underrated, but possibly underappreciated elsewhere in the world. Terrific win. Looking particularly lean, isn't he? As was Tony Martin, one has to say. Great win for Clarkey. He's 11 minutes and 9 seconds down this morning on the overall classification. He got himself into the break and he hung in there. Made sure he kept the pace high enough with Tony Martin to keep Azan Bazayev behind him. Bazayev is obviously in good condition as well. A first professional victory in a Grand Tour at that. He didn't take it in some chipper in Italy. Here is Simon Clark, winner of stage 4 of the Vuelta a España. Tomorrow, a completely different type of stage, Sean. The wind could be the factor tomorrow as well. You never know.
Yes, well, it's always on this sort of stage, as we can see, or as we've seen here today. You know, it did cause a problem. Tomorrow again, Logroño, you know, pretty much flat stage. So it's a day for the sprinters, and if there is some wind out there, well, then we could see the teams just pushing on, and especially in the final, if it's windy at all, well, it could cause major problems once again.